Pittsburgh Steelers get the bounce-back victory they were looking for here in Week 11 versus the Cincinnati Bengals. Final score 34-12, scoring 24 points in the second half with two defensive touchdowns. And, man, this defense looked completely different than just a month ago when this team lost and gave up over 30 points to Joe Flacco, Jamar Chase, and the Bengals. They completely shut them down after giving up a touchdown on their first drive today. Welcome into the Steelers Talk post-game show. I'm your host, Jack Sperry. Today, we got injury updates, quite a few big ones to talk about today. We'll also go over my game balls and then my takeaways heading into next week when we get ready to play the Chicago Bears and try to improve to 7-4 on the season. Make sure you click that subscribe button if you haven't already to see all of our post-game reactions this year. We try to get these out as soon as we possibly can after the game is over. So if you guys want my thoughts, my takeaways, injury updates, all that stuff after Steelers games this year, make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already to join the largest Steelers fan community anywhere here on YouTube. So final score, 34-12. Now, it was much closer heading into halftime where it was 10-6. And, the Steelers offense, once again, having a little bit of a hard time moving the football, was relying a lot on Darnell Washington and Jaylen Warren to, get the ball after the catch, all that stuff. And it was really a lot of the same stuff, even though Mason Rudolph had to come in for an injured Aaron Rodgers. We're going to talk about that here in a second. Rudolph was super efficient. Was able to get the ball to his playmakers out in space. But once again, in the second half, you get two defensive touchdowns, which was really what allowed the Steelers to win this game in blowout fashion. And it was really fantastic stuff from the Steelers defense that came up with a much better game plan. Joe Flacco, not even close to the numbers that he put up back in Week 7. Jamar Chase was pretty much shut down all day by the starting cornerback duo for the Steelers and James Pierre and Joey Porter Jr. They played a lot more press in this one. They forced Flacco to find other options. Chase Brown still had a pretty decent day, 99 yards rushing, but at the end of the day, man, just an incredible performance from the Steelers defense. And on offense, it was really a lot of Jaylen Warren early and then Darnell Washington the entire game and then Kenneth Gainwell in the second half. We'll talk about that later in today's show. But some injury updates here. Mike Tomlin just hit the podium in Pittsburgh, and he says that Aaron Rodgers has a left wrist injury and he needs more evaluation going into tomorrow. So really, Tomlin Tuesday coming up here is going to be a big one because I'm guessing if he's good to go and if it's nothing too serious, then he will play next week versus Chicago. But as we'll discuss later in the show, if Rodgers needs time to heal, it's nice to have a guy in Mason Rudolph that's capable of executing the offense. And then Jaylen Warren tried to go back into the game with an injury. He's certainly somebody that is very important to this offense. But as we're going to discuss later, for some reason, Kenneth Gainwell just turns it to a whole nother level when Jaylen Warren leaves the game. And he almost becomes like Jaylen Warren, where he's a fantastic back. He's catching passes out of the backfield, getting explosive plays for the Steelers offense. So hopefully Jaylen's okay. He was able to run off or walk off on his own power, and then he tried coming back into the game later. Steelers eventually shut him down. But, the fact that he was able to walk and the fact that he wanted to go out and play again is good news in terms of Warren's and the severity of the injury. I'm guessing he'll be back soon, if not next week. Then Keshawn Williams left this game early with a concussion. He was on special teams, and he took a hard hit to the head. Hopefully, Keshawn is going to be better moving forward, and hopefully he can get better soon. But it certainly seems like he is going to be out for at least this next week, which might open up a roster spot, by the way, for Marquez Valdes-Scantling. But then Jalen Ramsey was ejected from this football game in the second half. He was going at it with Jamar Chase all day long, very chippy, and then a play happened here where Ramsey, grabs the face mask, starts swinging at Jamar Chase, but, the video comes out after Ramsey is ejected from the game and the Steelers incur a 15-yard penalty and the Bengals got a first down. It comes out that Jamar Chase spit on Jalen Ramsey, and he didn't get penalized at all. He was able to finish the game, no penalty for the Cincinnati Bengals, all that different stuff. And all I got to say is after this, we came away with the win, so I'm fine. But next week, Jamar Chase has to be suspended for that because Jalen Carter got suspended for a game. First game of the year, in fact, when he spit on Dak Prescott. There's undisputable video evidence out there, guys. You can see it on Twitter or wherever that this guy spit on Jalen Ramsey, and then Ramsey was the one that was penalized and ejected. All right, so I think Ramsey has done his time. He should be able to play next week versus the Chicago Bears, and Jamar Chase should be suspended by the National Football League for what he did on the field at Acrisure Stadium today. Now getting to the game balls. First one goes to Mason Rudolph. I mean, clap it up for Rudolph, the third-string QB again, man. Like, he comes in, and he usually tends to play well against the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, I will say, he was aided by the fact that the defense got 2 touchdowns for him, and, there's a lot of dump-offs that went for big gains for Darnell and Kenny, and he did make some really nice throws. I thought that he came in, played very well, very efficient. He kept the ball and kept the team moving on third downs. Offense did look better in the second half, in my opinion, than they did in the first half with Aaron Rodgers. I'll give him that. And frankly, guys, if Mason Rudolph has to start next week against the Chicago Bears, I have no qualms about that. He is one of the better backups in the National Football League, in my opinion, and he proved that today. Then Darnell Washington, man, he needs to be used more. I mean, I know they use him a lot already. He needs to be used more. I mean, one play today, he stiff-armed a guy, and then he ran over another dude for an explosive gain. I mean, for a guy that big to move that well and catch the ball as well as he does, and then to run the ball with the ball, and after the catch as well as he does, he's just an absolute behemoth, man, and he gives this offense an X factor that they really don't find anywhere else outside of maybe Jaylen Warren at running back. So big shout out to Darnell. Then Kyle Duggar got a pick 6 today. Big shout out to him. Shout out and honorable mention to Brandon Echols, who forced a fumble late that ended up being picked up by James Pierre for a touchdown. But Kyle Duggar, man, fantastic stuff there. Post-snap rotation, going into the middle of the field. Good pressure from the pass rush to force Flacco to get the ball out quickly, and Duggar's right there to pick it off and take it to the crib. So great stuff from Kyle Duggar. Welcome to the Pittsburgh Steelers defense, my friend. And then Kenneth Gainwell certainly deserves a game ball as well. I mean, he came in after Jaylen Warren's injury, and I remember, man, when Jaylen went down, we're like, there goes the offense. And no, Kenneth Gainwell, for some reason, week 4 against Minnesota, over 100 yards from scrimmage. This game completely, just replaced Jaylen Warren's role in this offense as the pass-catching guy, as somebody that's going to make people miss after the catch. I mean, I don't know what it is about Kenny Gainwell, man, but he just turns into a different person when Jaylen Warren is injured. I don't know if it's, okay, I got my opportunity here, I got to make the most of it, but he certainly played well today. Final game ball goes to defensive coordinator Teryl Austin. All right, he has made a lot of really good changes to this defense, and he deserves credit for it. If you were going to blame him like we did on this channel for, not having a good game plan against the Bengals the first time, you have to give him credit for a much better game plan this time around. And, they kind of fell in to James Pierre playing at corner, and he's just been a revelation, but I thought the game plan this week was a lot better, a lot more press, not giving up those easy slants like they did back in week 7. Much, much better all around on the defensive side of the ball. And Teryl Austin deserves credit, along with Mike Tomlin, for getting things fixed on that side of the ball here in Pittsburgh. So who's your MVP? Let me know down there in the comment section. Who is today's MVP for the Pittsburgh Steelers? Let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. This will be the pinned comment on today's show. In just a second, I'm going to let you know about our friends today at Prize Picks. While I tell you about Prize Picks, let me know who today's MVP was for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And with that, let's have a word from our sponsor today at Prize Picks. And the hard-hitting football action this football season is even better with our friends at Prize Picks. The weather might be changing outside, but the feeling of being right never gets old. So keep the season rolling on with Prize Picks by getting $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5. Prize Picks is super simple to play. Just pick more than or less than on at least 2 player stat projections. If you get your picks right, you could cash in. On Prize Picks, how you play is up to you. If you want flexibility, choose the flex play where you can get paid even if one of your picks misses. And if you want the biggest payouts, go for the power play. No matter how you play, though, Prize Picks is a great way to put your takes to the test. Join millions of users and sign up for America's #1 fantasy sports app. So, unfortunately, Jaylen Warren got hurt in the second half, so I didn't get an injury reboot on this one. But I did get an injury reboot on Aaron Rodgers because he got injured at the end of the first half. I took the more on both Rodgers and Warren today, and I took the less on Joe Flacco passing yards. At least I hit that one, though. Steelers defense came to play. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS. Get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup on the Prize Picks app today. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. All right, so first thing I want to say is great job by Mason Rudolph. Coming in cold, off the bench on a cold, windy day, and making the kind of throws that he made today, just executing the offense. He had a couple misses today, but that's fine. All right, for a backup quarterback to come in and execute on a couple 3rd and longs the way that he did. Now, I don't necessarily think that there was any throw that Rudolph made today that, like, Rodgers is incapable of making or anything like that. I do think if Rodgers plays the second half, it's a pretty similar outcome, if I'm being completely honest with you. But, really good quarterback rating today. He was very efficient, didn't have any major mistakes. He got the ball out on time and in rhythm the way Mason always tends to do. And, he showed today why this team and this fan base should be extremely comfortable with him as their backup quarterback. I think, he doesn't raise the ceiling a whole lot, but he definitely, elevates the floor compared to other backup quarterbacks in this league. He's smart. He's accurate. He can throw the ball down the field. He's got a pretty good arm, good size, all that stuff. And if, the playmakers are making the plays that they made for him in the second half, by all means, Mason Rudolph can easily win these types of ball games for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and he's proven that time and time again. However, Aaron Rodgers is still QB1, and if he's healthy, Rodgers will be the quarterback next week. And I know because, the narrative is going to shift because the Steelers scored 24 in the second half and they only scored 10 in the first half, that, the narrative is going to be, the Steelers were clearly better with Mason Rudolph, and they have to go with him next week, even if Rodgers is good to go. But like I said, man, I think if Rodgers is in there, they probably win this game by multiple scores again. 14 points from your defense is a big deal. And I think, that's more to, credit for, this incredible performance from the Pittsburgh Steelers. And the defense deserves more of the credit than Mason Rudolph does, personally. But, certainly if Rodgers can come back next week, I think, you probably still play him. And if he struggles, then, you have a guy in Mason Rudolph that you can trust down the stretch. And if Rudy has to play next week, I will be thrilled for that, man. I think that, he's a good guy, works hard, deserves an opportunity for sure. And, if he plays next week because Rodgers is injured, I have every confidence in this team to get the job done versus the Bears next week. Then, I still think we have some issues on the offense because this team is still very, very reliant on yards after the catch. And today, the two guys that were really championing that was Darnell Washington and Kenny Gainwell. Darnell, 67 total yards today, most of that probably on yak. And, he had multiple explosive pass catches today, where he's just mowing people down. And then Kenny Gainwell today, on the ground wasn't that phenomenal, honestly, just averaged 2.7 yards on the ground. He's really more of a true third down back, but as a receiver, he was phenomenal. Just checking my notes here real quick. He had 9 catches. That was second most on the team. The only one with, or never mind, sorry. He actually had 7 catches on the day that led the team, okay? And he had 81 yards, which also led the team. So Gainwell was your leading receiver today. And whenever your running back leads your team in receiving, that tells you that, a lot of it was yards after the catch, making guys miss. Check downs, stuff like that. And this Steelers offense really struggles to throw the ball down the field. And part of that is DK Metcalf is getting doubled a lot, and that is certainly a big issue. But really the bigger issue than that is Calvin Austin and Roman Wilson are struggling to get open. Now, Roman did get open on a very big play today on a third down and long, and, Mason had a beautiful throw getting him the football, with anticipation to move the chains. At a very crucial part of this football game. But then Calvin Austin III, only 1 catch for 5 yards. He's been a huge disappointment this year. At this point, I don't really see any way that Calvin Austin gets, that second contract with the Pittsburgh Steelers. But Roman Wilson, man, continues to show some flashes. He played a lot today, but he only got that one opportunity. So hopefully we can see Roman get more and more opportunities. But, he played a lot today. He was this team's number 2 receiver, and he still only finished the game with 1 catch with a lot of one-on-one opportunities. So whether it's Rodgers, whether it's Rudolph, this offense still has a very key issue, which is that they can't throw the ball down the field very effectively. And that's an issue that needs to be fixed moving forward if this offense is going to play better down the stretch. So make sure you guys click that thumbs up icon if you haven't already to celebrate this Week 11 victory. Convincing victory for the Pittsburgh Steelers against an inferior opponent. Really the type of game that we've been asking for from the Pittsburgh Steelers all season long. If you're with me on that, click that thumbs up icon to celebrate today's win. But really the star of the show today, guys, there's no doubt about it, was the Steelers defense. And I do think after 3 straight really solid performances and James Pierre playing the way that he played, we'll talk about him here in a second, it was a fantastic performance. Now, they did allow Chase Brown to get some good yardage today and, on the ground, and, they'll fix that. They will. But, the pass defense is just so much better than it was just a month ago when this team played the Cincinnati Bengals, and you're forcing turnovers. You put pressure on Joe Flacco. You only get 1 sack on the day. That went to Nick Herbig, by the way. But you put pressure on Flacco pretty consistently, forced him to get the ball out to his check down, and then the defense rallied to the football really well as well. I thought Teryl Austin did a good job mixing things up. Thought the players on the field did a good job executing. I think Jaylen Ramsey, when he was in, did a great job being the enforcer in the middle of the field like he has been the last 3 weeks. And then the cover guys on the outside were terrific with Joey Porter Jr. and James Pierre. And I think it's time to have this discussion, guys. I know you bring in Asante Samuel Jr., and he's been pretty much exclusively an outside corner in his career. But James Pierre has earned his full-time starting job, man. He has arguably been one of the best corners in football over the last 3 weeks. There's no way about it, man. He got targeted 10 times today, and he only gave up 30 yards. All right, I'm really intrigued to see what the PFF grade is going to be on him, because coming into today's game, he was the highest graded cover corner in football on a very limited sample size. But today he started the entire game, and you can't ask for a tougher wide receiver duo to go up against than Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, and only give up 30 yards on 10 targets with him being the guy. He also had a fumble recovery for a touchdown today. Pierre has fully ingratiated himself inside the Steelers defense. He was terrific in the preseason and at training camp. Lots of interceptions, lots of great plays from James, and he's made the most of his opportunity. So Jerry Dulac said today that the Steelers are in no rush to elevate Asante Samuel Jr., and with James Pierre playing the way that he's playing, there's no reason to inject anybody else on the outside as far as I'm concerned. But then something that really concerns me, and maybe the one negative takeaway here, is why did Chuck Clark get time over Jabril Peppers? I mean, seriously, what is wrong with Jabril Peppers where you don't trust him enough on the field compared to a guy like Chuck Clark, who has been a big liability for the Steelers defense the entire season? All right, he had to come in when Ramsey left the game, and I thought Chuck played fine today. Oh, that's fine. But, the game was kind of in hand at certain points there, and I just feel like Jabril Peppers should be the next guy on the totem pole, because Chuck Clark has been out there quite a bit, and he has really struggled. So I'm really happy about the win, really happy about the way this defense played. If this defense plays the way that it's playing right now for the rest of the season and heading into the playoffs, this Steelers team can beat anybody in football, especially at home, and especially when they're creating the turnovers that they created today. So let me know down there in the comments section. Grade today's performance from the Steelers, A, B, C, D, or F. This might ruffle some feathers, but I'm going to go with a B+. I think the offense gets an A, or the defense gets an A. Offense gets a C+. All right? Like the offense, 10 points in the first half, 10 points in the second half, okay? And the defense was the one that was stopping Jamar Chase, and they scored a lot of points, man. The defense almost scored as many points as the offense did. And off of those 2 turnovers. So I'm going to go with a B+. There's still issues on this Steelers team. I want to be abundantly clear about that. But it's nice to get a convincing victory against a divisional opponent at home after a tough loss last week against the Chargers. Some final thoughts here. Going into next week, I said last week on this postgame show, and there's a lot of people that were yelling at me for saying this. I think the Steelers are going to beat the Bengals. I think they're going to beat the Bears. And I think they're going to have a better chance against the Bills at home than people give them credit for. And I still hold strong on that. I think that next week, Caleb Williams facing his first ever Mike Tomlin defense, it's going to be an adventure for him, especially with the way this defense is playing right now. I think that whether it's Mason Rudolph or Aaron Rodgers, I think that the offense will be good enough to win in Chicago next week. And then, you go against Buffalo, and they really struggle against jumbo personnel packages. And as long as the Steelers can stay healthy up front in Chicago, Steelers should have all the things that they need to be able to run the ball effectively against a Buffalo defense that struggles to stop the run. So I like where the Steelers are sitting right now. I think that this is kind of the stretch of the season here where Mike Tomlin is going to put this team in position to go to the playoffs. And obviously we still have to stave off the Ravens in the AFC North, but to kind of take care of business and kind of avenge this team from that embarrassing loss on Thursday Night Football against the Bengals back in Week 7 with a convincing victory that we are clearly the better team compared to the Bengals this season. I think that's a good sign for this Pittsburgh Steelers team, that there's still hope for this team moving forward. And I guess we'll see what happens next week. Make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already. Thank you guys so much for joining us here for this post-game reaction show. I'm going to have another at-home video once I'm able to watch this game back, once I go over the post-game press conferences, all that stuff. I'll have some more stuff for you guys later in today's show, probably at halftime of Sunday Night Football. So stay tuned for that. Click that subscribe button if you haven't already. Till next time, guys. Here we go, Steelers.